Welcome, you slags, to Literary as FECK. I'm Bernard Mandingo, proto-feminist, and he is...
This is way too early in the morning for me to be that. Yeah, I can't even think of the word for whatever improvisational. So I'm just plain
I think
old
it's
Nick
Nick,
this
isn't it?
morning.
Your name's Nick.
It-
Improvisation would be a stupid name.
that yeah, it would be an odd choice of
Oh
my
no.
parents.
Apologies to some poor fuckers out there
Oh
is
no,
called improv or something like that.
no doubt.
Yeah.
Yes, you always. That's funny. Like growing up in the 80s, you had um a certain number of people at your school whose parents were obviously like hardcore hippies, in the 70s. And
Right.
so you would have, yeah, every now and again you'd go to school with somebody who was like Rainbow Star Child Emmanuel or some shit
Right.
like that.
Smoky.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't, I mean, now I guess you see that a lot now as well, but
Yeah. This is my sister, Jaundice.
exactly.
Yeah, because jaundice sounds nice just as a
It
sound,
does.
doesn't it?
It
It's like,
does.
bit of jaundice, but it's not.
No, no.
I don't even, I'll be honest, now that I've brought it up, I don't even exactly know what the fuck jaundice is. I kind of
No,
know what it looks like,
but there's a
but
yellowing of the skin, I
yes,
understand.
but I'm not quite sure what causes it.
No, scurvy, I know. Scurvy is lack of, a bit of vitamin C. Um,
Right.
but, uh, but yeah,
But weirdly,
that's,
if you take too much vitamin C, you can turn a bit yellow as well. Your skin can turn a bit yellow. Did
is
you
this
know that?
like when you have too many carrots and you
No,
you
I
turn off
discovered this just actually did literally happen to the missus. She overdosed on vitamin C and
the,
she had like, well, not overdosed, like
right,
just ate a
right.
lot of vitamin C and
Hmm,
yeah, shiny yellow hands.
interesting.
Try it
Hmm,
out, check it out.
okay.
You got a
Yeah,
day
yeah.
off today, right? Go down the
Just
local store and stock up on oranges and the like.
take massive, massive overdose of
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I very rarely hear police,
Oh,
pulling over
terrible, terrible OD
open
on
the back. It's full of lemons. Did you eat all these yourself?
Ah, yes, yes. Although I'm sure I've seen videos on the
Of
internet of
people
people.
off their
In,
heads on fruit.
no, I was going to say inserting, like I assume for smuggling purposes, inserting various lemons and oranges into orifices and stuff.
Well,
Um,
as we know from the documentary film Beverly Hills Cop as well, you're not supposed to put bananas in the
in
exhaust,
the
right?
tailpipe. No,
Yeah.
no, you want to keep them out of your tailpipe. Um,
You stay out of my tailpipe, Nick. Anyway, I think this is a fine way to introduce what we're talking about,
oh, I think so.
which is books.
And specifically, didn't this one win like the Nobel Prize? So yeah, I can't imagine a better way
So
to intro.
I'm actually quite, I think I'm dancing around it a bit because I'm actually quite excited to talk about this book. So,
Mhm.
um, I I was going to say rarely, but it might actually be almost never choose a reread, right?
Yes,
And it's
yes.
actually something we both do now, is we
Mhm.
decided to kind of be interesting to always, you know,
Something
gamble
sight
on.
unseen. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was thinking, I can't remember. I think I was watching some other Wim Wenders films, and I was thinking about Wim Wenders in general, and I was thinking,
I
oh,
think I've only ever seen Paris, Texas.
oh, okay, well, it's a good film.
And it is a great film, but it might
Yeah,
be the only. So this made me realize that that's definitely a gap when because I assume we'll talk about the film.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and that's, yeah, so definitely it is a gap for me. I don't know why. I don't know if I had it in my head that like I wasn't a huge fan, but I'm realizing that that's a mis
Well, I mean, obviously, I think we've spoiled it a little bit. I think we both seem to quite like at least the film version of this, and we'll get there. But
Hmm,
yeah, but it is well. What I was, yeah, I think it might be his best film, maybe. But
okay.
there's a few of them I
And it's
haven't
his,
seen. But
and it's his first, right? Which is amazing.
no, not quite. He
Or
did
it's
do
not
another
quite okay.
feature before then and a bunch of
Okay.
shorts. But I don't think the feature got the first film of his that got proper like release. I think.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So
Hmm.
but yeah. So I was thinking about that for some reason. I was thinking, I don't think I've ever written about the film because I think I just couldn't. I didn't have the words. It was every now and again I feel like unable to write about something, and I just have to let it go and come back to it at some point.
Hmm.
There's things, some things are just I no, I can't. I cannot. I wish I could. I was just this really great, articulate, erudite, and I could write about anything. But there's certain things that it's just like, yep, no, I mean, I feel it, but I'm
Hmm.
stumped. I can't explain. So, but bye for now. And I thought it was like,
Right.
okay, I'd like to see Goalie again, and I've never seen it in HD, and I
Hmm.
suspect it was probably great looking for. But then I was thinking, well, hang on now, what? Oh yeah, I read the book because I read Peter Handke's book, which is what we're actually talking about
Hmm.
mainly here, and it was a film. So Peter Handke as well. We should probably. So he's kind of he has been somewhat cancelled in the interim as well, right? So Peter
Okay.
Handke,
So that's
hmm,
okay. That's interesting because he's not on my radar at all before this. And I did a course that I was a teaching assistant for in post-war German literature. And it's interesting to me that he didn't come up in like I remember we did Mephisto, which is by
hmm,
Matt, and we did Gunter Grass's The Tin Drum, and there was
right, yeah,
several kind of important, and in most cases there was a film to go with the, so we would read the book and then we'd also watch the film and then talk
right,
about the
right.
relationship between the two. But in any
What a
case,
great idea for a podcast.
we should totally, yeah.
Someone should
And
get on that shit.
so so yeah, but anyways, for whatever reason, he didn't come up, and I'm wondering, so when was he cancelled? I mean, was this more recent than the kind of, because
Well,
this.
I'm no expert because that's the other thing that I was doing. I was wanted to kind of get back round to reading Peter Handke because I've only ever read this book, right?
Mhm.
Even to this day. And I don't know why, for some reason, I was clued into this, and we'll get to that as well as a story. But and then and I kept needing to come back to him, but I still haven't. So this is I'm hoping from now on I'm going to go on to the next one, whatever.
Mhm.
But so the book's from 69 or 1970, right?
Mhm.
Uh, Fast forward, and yeah, he's Austrian, and he was very much a kind of literary giant of that.
Mhm.
No, again, I don't know how much. I think if you're in literary circles, probably pretty much. I
Mhm.
think he was one of those writers that all the other writers were reading at that time, when a new book
Right.
came out or something like that. And then again, I don't know the details, and I'm not no expert, but I think um, it was during that whole period of time with the Serbo-Croat conflict and then Bosnia and stuff like
Okay.
that. He was considered an apologist for Slobodan Milosevic, I think. In fact, I think he was
Okay.
even at his funeral. He spoke at his funeral.
Okay.
And basically, it's something along the lines of his argument was it was a little bit more nuanced than the conflict was being displayed in the world media, and he was saying that Serbs, whereas around the world mostly kind of being seen as the aggressors,
Mhm.
he was saying, well, Serbs are also the losers in this war. They are also victims. I think that's what he was kind of
Okay.
trying to say. But it was very much going against the grain of, at that time, kind of saying anything other than Serbs and
Right.
Milosevic are monsters, and
Okay.
and I
Okay.
think he maybe, I don't know, I'm sure someone must have written a book about it at some point. Which, if they have, actually, I'd be fascinated to read it because I think he did, unfortunately, not like see the error of his ways, or like he kind of doubled down and he said
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
stuff that
Yeah.
was a little bit kind of vaguely sounded conspiracy theory-ish about whether the Srebrenica massacres happened and stuff
Okay.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, it's kind of a common
And
story.
it's so what's interesting is actually when I finished the book, I started to kind of think about like what did this remind me of, or like is there another, because there was something vaguely kind of like there's something about this that reminds me of another writer that I like that is perhaps even more problematic. In fact, not even perhaps is more problematic. Um,
Oh,
but
are you
maybe
going to use the C word, you?
maybe no. Funny enough, no. The other one,
Oh,
no.
who's the
Um,
other one?
that literally go hand in hand with Mr. Frenchie, the one from Norway.
Ah, right. Okay.
But this
Okay.
book to me read a little bit like by
I
the time I
just
got to
realized we might have you might actually want to say who that is because I
I
know you.
will.
Yeah.
I will. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So basically, I mean, not to get, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but this book in a way deals with two kind of things. Well, these are many things, but it deals with two major things. One is someone's mind unraveling, right?
Mm.
Someone basically suffering from some sort of mental break or quite serious mental illness, right? And the book immerses you in this kind of weirdly um, like it's not first person. It's third person, but you're locked into basically the mind, and
You
you
never
experience
leave
almost
that
everything.
head
You never leave the yeah, you don't leave the head of Block, who is the basically
ever.
the protagonist. Yeah, and everything we see is filtered through his consciousness, and we know that his consciousness is distorted
Well,
in some
that's the
way.
thing. So we're talking, by the way, the goalie's anxiety at the penalty kick by Peter Handke.
Mm,
But it's not just seeing it. What's fascinating about it is it doesn't emulate it exactly because that would be a maddening read. But there's enough in it where um there's like a jump in the like you're talking about something else and then something else you'll see out of peripheral vision and you acknowledge it and then leave it and move on to like
mhm.
it's very much how your mind works in the moment, which is
Yes.
very difficult to write. Number one, without it just being incomprehensible, and
Hmm.
number two, it not becoming tedious, right?
Hmm.
And this book really does, I think, walk right up to that line.
Yep.
I will see what you think, where if it wasn't so carefully calibrated, it would kind of just be unreadable drivel. But for me, it's not. It's entirely
Hmm.
repulsive and mesmerizing.
Hmm.
And that's kind of a weird trick. But because it's so kind of sparely written in a way, it also has you thinking, oh, this is easy. This is someone's just written something. I went there, I opened the door, I noticed there was a
Hmm.
cow over there. There wasn't a
Hmm.
cow yesterday. Anyway, whatever,
Oh, but then importantly, what does that mean? Does that mean something that there
Right.
wasn't a cow
Yeah.
there, but there is one today?
The
Because
cow reminded me of when my grandfather used to laugh into a sock, but only
right.
on Fridays. I like, what's going on? So it's you realize that it's actually incredibly well written, but made to look effortless. And it might have been effortless. I don't know. I don't know in what state you have to get in mentally to be able to write like this,
Hmm.
because it is quite, I think it's an extraordinary thing that doesn't look extraordinary somehow, but it is, was my rev. So anyway,
Yes.
so I first read this book. It was quite important for me in retrospect because I did a film course, like a crash course. And I probably mentioned it before for a couple of, for 1 year when I was like 18, 19.
Hmm.
And our tutor was a guy called Richard Lewis. And it was quite interesting because how some
Not the
people,
comedian, I assume.
no, a teacher figure can be one thing to one person, something very different to someone
Hmm.
else. So someone else who I went to we were both enrolled in the film course, found him for whatever reason, there was just a like found him to be really critical of him. Like he just got bad vibes off him somehow.
Vibes. Okay.
Somehow almost everything he said was wrong or met with derision by him. Or that's
Take
how,
it,
yeah,
taken the
that's
wrong
how he
way.
took it at
Held.
least.
Right.
And for me, the same man was actually really quite instructive
Mm.
and kind of took me under his wing a little bit. And I remember him, he changed because I'd written this script. We were supposed to do our first film, and I'd written the script, and it was very kind of, it was very me at that age. So it was
Hmm.
filled with anger and things about film censorship, and and it
Mm.
was like this kind of thing. And it wasn't that it was bad. It probably wasn't very good either. But I took this to the, and and he was like, well, you've already made this, he said. Like you've written this. You've written the whole thing. What are you going to learn when you're going to like? There's no room
Mm.
for. And for me, that was like, oh shit. Because prior to that, I'd always kind of adhered to that kind of, Hitchcock has the whole film in his head, everything
Hmm.
like.
Yep.
And it is good to have a vision, don't get me wrong. But what he pointed out to me was like, look, this is already fossilized or dead or whatever. You're
But you,
not.
yeah, you've left yourself no room.
Yeah, so I just went away and I wrote this other thing. It was a very superfluous little thing, but it wasn't the point. The point was that it got you thinking in that way.
Hmm.
Um, and then I just went with him with this thing, which was I remember once when I was in primary school, we had a Canadian exchange student, and his name was Oliver, right? And
Hmm.
I remember that. And he was in that was when we were 9 or 10, something like that, right? And he found out that I was a film fan. I was asking him, and I was saying, "Oh yeah," because in those days, films always get released, earlier in
Yes.
North
North
America than they
America.
did
Yeah.
here. And I don't know, just for his own amusement or something, but fair play to him, hats off. He took me hook, line, and sinker, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like, have you guys had Superman 5 yet?" I was like, "No, no, what's this?" And there are all these sequels he made up and stuff. That was like, and I
Awesome.
was like, wow. And I just wrote about that and remembering it and getting
Mhm.
angry, shouting, "You lying Canadian bastard!" And it was just an excess. And then he was like, "Yeah, okay, now this is a bit more like you're learning in the
Mm.
process. You're not just, you know."
Yeah.
And for me, that was really, and he lent me this book, actually. He lent me The Goalie's Anxiety at the Penalty Kick.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
his own copy, he lent it to me. I
Like
was like,
how, oh,
"See?"
sorry, I should say, my equivalent story is just I was once given a copy of the Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test
Oh,
uh, by Tom Wolfe by a professor who was like, I think you would appreciate that.
oh,
This,
I thought you were going to say by Tom Wolfe there. Wow,
yeah, he just happened to swing by.
he just knocked on the door. Hey,
Have you
little
have
fella.
you considered? Um, yes.
Yeah. Say hi to your mom. Um, so
But
yeah,
anyway, yeah. Okay.
yeah.
I'm
So
sorry.
so and he lent it to me, and it's a quite a slim volume. And I do
Mhm.
remember like being really impressed. Nowhere near as impressed as I am now, but just I thought, wow, I've never quite read a book like this
Mhm.
before. And then I can't remember if it came on television or if because they did have a small selection of videos in the film department as well that you could take home if you
Mhm.
wanted.
Right.
They had like last year at Marienbad and stuff like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
But
A little criterion closet
yeah,
that
yeah, before
every
was really a
university used to
thing.
have or
Yeah.
college. Yeah.
So but I ended up seeing the film, and like I said, not really being able to process what it was, other than thinking, "Fuck, I really like the book, and I really like this." But more than that, I really like what this has opened up in me as a possible way of approaching art. Right? Like it
Okay.
was profound to the point that I think what happened was I kind of forgot what triggered it in a way. And then it
Right.
was tickling at the back of my head. And now I only now do I really realize how important reading this book and seeing the film back in the day was.
Hmm.
And yeah, so yeah, like you said, what's our main character's name? Block, isn't it?
Locke, which I
Yeah.
wondered whether or not there was any, whether that was a nod to Psycho or not, and to Robert.
I wonder, we'll especially get to that with the film actually, in terms of like something almost being a bait and switch. Um,
Right.
but anyway, it's basically
I
this
love the
guy.
fact that this is also, sorry, like I've more than once now when I've looked the book up, been like, it's been described as a detective story. And I'm like, really?
It's
Where's the detective?
It's kind of it. I mean, yeah, it is very. I mean, I don't know where to start considering it's just a slim, but it's very easy. It's basically a guy called Block who, um, he
Which I
leaves
do love
his.
this.
Does he
At the
leave
beginning of
his
the story,
factory job? Does he? I
yes,
think
yes, which is different. That's the one major change in the
difference in the
book.
film. Yeah,
Or sorry, yeah, from the book that we don't see this in the film, but yeah, he shows up to his factory job. He kind of looks around, and the whole story is him in a way, as many people who are, who suffer with kind of mental illness, he's seeing patterns, or he's taking in information and he's kind of assuming things, or and in this case he shows up to the job, but he just assumes based on the way people interact with him that he's been fired. But that's actually not explicitly, nobody tells him you've lost your
No,
job. He
no,
just
no.
he shows up and he's like, think I've lost my job, and then leaves.
But
Uh,
more importantly, what defines him as that is he's a former goalkeeper.
yes.
And it's
Yeah.
also intimated that I suppose he was a quite a big deal once upon a time as well. Like
Well, he's
he would have
traveled the
been considered a
world.
good goalkeeper, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and it's him, yeah, basically just walking out on whatever life he might have had before. We don't really know. And he just kind of, yeah, he takes buses here. It's kind of a bit of a road movie when you get to the movie, which is,
Mhm.
Vivek is famous for his road movies. This isn't considered one of his road movies, but it is absolutely a road movie.
Very much, yeah.
Um, and well, so the main difference, if we get into it, like, well, I don't think these are spoilers, really. I suppose the other main difference I found between the book and the film, just to explain what goes on in the book, is in the book, it's very, very, very lightly hinted at that he might have killed a child.
Yes.
Just a little bit.
Possibly,
Just
yes.
a
Yeah.
little tiny bit.
Yeah.
Not enough actually that you but it's there. And
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
much more explicit in the film, and they changed it a little bit to a different thing,
Mhm.
right? But
But it's
yeah,
also in the book. I mean, he does murder a woman in both, right? I mean, there's no.
again, no, not explicitly. I mean, I think he did. I mean, he almost definitely did in the film, although even they're careful to not
Yes, yes. There is a
quite
fade. There is
put
a
two
kind
and
of a
two
fade to
together.
black. There is a yes.
Yeah,
It does seem. I mean, it seemed to me. I took it as read when I read the book because I saw the book. Or I read the book first.
yeah.
So I definitely took it when I read the book as like, no, he has murdered this woman for reasons that are not. He doesn't
See, I
understand.
wasn't entirely sure if he did.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I see that there is space for that reading for sure.
right, right.
Um, because again, he's the least trustworthy
Yeah, of course.
narrator.
It's a bit of a proto in the same way as, again, not so much in the book, maybe, but more in the film version. That works in a slightly American Psycho way, right? In terms of like a
Yes,
very, very unreliable narrator, and
yes.
everything might just be doodles in a pad or something at the end
Mhm.
of the day. Or but yes, but like you said, it's more than it's not just that. It's also yeah, it's I'm not familiar with it. You've probably heard this phrase in recent years, autofiction, right? And I kind of got an idea of what it's supposed to be, but I don't think I've ever actually read any autofiction. But my guess is, is this like does autofiction
I
read a
don't
bit like
know.
this?
I don't actually know. I don't know that I've heard the term before. So
Oh, really?
yeah, but so maybe. Um,
Right. But what I mean, but even from the name alone, you can kind of
mhm.
get an idea of it. I think it's kind of almost like a stream of consciousness thing.
Right.
But like I said, it's more than
So
that together because it feels very deeply
I'll bring
edited.
I'll
And
bring it back to the couple of things that as I read it, and I think, and I don't know that they were influences or not, but that to me, my mind kind of in seeking places to make connections. So I brought him up before without saying his name, but Newt Hampson. There are two different books by Newt Hampson that this kind of reminded me of. One is The
sorry to
Hunger.
pull you up here, Nick, but I must correct your. He is, of course, called Kunt Hansen,
Yes,
is how you
Constance.
pronounce it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he
We
was.
don't
I
want to
mean, yeah.
offend anyone with a mispronunciation.
No, no, and as it turns out, he was a bit
Yes.
of one for sure. So yes, I mean, I guess we'll just get this out of the way. Yeah, his big reason for being cancelled was he was an out and out Nazi collaborator. When they invaded Norway, he was kind of a quisling type of yeah, and not just, I mean, actively supported, actively believed in the white supremacy bullshit. But anyway, um, clearly a person who is struggling with his own mental health. But the hunger is a first person narrative of somebody who is unraveling. But it's it's different from this book in that this book, as you said, is written in a very spare way and is not a first person narrative,
No,
right? It is a third person, although you're completely trapped in the head of one character who
right.
is uh, going mad. But anyway, the hunger, and then the other one is the Wanderer, that kind of diptych, that set of two books that Hamsun wrote a couple of years later about just a laborer wandering around in the countryside in Norway doing odd jobs, and there's something in that book is also very very spare and very very much kind of just a series of observations. It should be boring as fuck, and yet for some reason, the Wanderer is
I don't
completely
think I
captivating.
don't think I read that one.
Okay, it's I mean the Wanderer maybe it's actually it's two books he wrote separated by several years, but about the same character.
Okay,
Um,
because I think the only two I've read is Hunger and Mysteries, right?
yes, yeah. No, definitely give. I think you would really get along with and see if you can find it as The Wanderer, because I said that's got both books in it.
Okay, writing it down.
But yeah, so for me there was there's it kind of it reminded oh man, I've lost my train of thought where I was going beyond that. But anyway,
The
um
Wanderer, it reminded you of both The Wanderer. Uh,
oh yes, and the other this is and may seem like even a weirder connection, but it reminded me a little bit of Flann O'Brien's like especially when he gets to the because so basically after he does or doesn't murder this woman, he flees a bigger city and then goes to this border town, this little where he has an ex-girlfriend who is running an inn there, right?
right,
Spends the rest of the novel kind of just wandering around this little town, kind of keeping an eye on the newspapers to see if stuff has come out about this murder that he probably did. Um, uh, but a lot of it is just, yeah, like some of the conversations he has is that one lengthy conversation with a police officer when he's walking back, and the cop is explaining and unpacking how you tell which way somebody's going to run if they're going to run away from you. That seemed like a conversation that was right out of the third
right.
police
Third
mass.
policeman or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No,
Um,
I see
uh,
that. Yeah.
and then when I was thinking, well, yeah, it kind of makes sense because we did watch a German adaptation of
Austrian, in fact, which is
or
even
oh,
more
sorry,
fun
yes, an
because
Austrian
he's Austrian.
adaptation
Yeah.
of the other one, At Swim Two Birds, right?
Yes.
So which made me think, yeah, maybe there is a kind of a weird synergy between this rural Irish madness and this rural Austrian madness.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's so difficult. I mean, we've been banging on for a while now, and I still don't feel we've got to the essence. So, well, actually,
No.
I haven't asked you. I've actually asked you. I just assumed I shouldn't do
Hmm.
that. What What did you think of this book? Did you like this book?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I would say and I like the film too, although I think the film can't actually capture. I think in like that there's something about being locked into his mind that the film has chosen in a way to kind of not do, right? We're not really given privy to his thoughts in the way that we're sort of given privy to his thoughts in the book, I
I
feel.
know what you mean. However, I think the thing so we're jumping around here, but it just seems to be the
I
way
know.
it is. And I wanted it to be a bit more, but yes, okay. Um, I think the trick to the film is, and the reason I think so watching this a sec, this is like one of my all-time favorite films ever. And I enjoyed watching this
Mm,
so much. But it's
mhm.
interesting though. I'm glad you mentioned it because I think one of the things that makes the difference that connects you. So I wrote the name down. Is Jürgen Knieper is the guy, the composer, like the guy who made the
Okay.
score. And I thought the use of music was like so. There's this little kind of I guess it's like a slightly triumphant kind of
Yes, yes.
that kind of little uh
Hmm.
refrain, right? And the
Hmm.
first time you hear it, that's fine because you have the tracking shot of a city or something. It's like, but then I lost count of the number of times they bring it back. But
Yes.
it's what's brilliant is they bring it back when something really, really small and pathetic and nothing fantastic has just happened. Like he just picked up a pencil or something and then
Mhm.
like, so that's the thing. I think that connects you to his head because you're like in his head, yes, I did that. And in his head,
Mm.
he's hearing.
Triumphant,
So I'm
yeah, horns.
complicit with him in everything that they do. I genuinely thought that was one of the
Hmm.
genius things about the film was the use of music, which to me meant that the film does actually do what you're saying you think it might not, but I think it does, but in a very different way from the book for sure.
Hmm.
But of course, it's a film, right? So yeah.
Yes, yeah, and as I said, in a way, yeah, it's a weird. It's they're both strange. They're both strange objects. The book is strange because, as I said, it would almost make more sense for it to have just been like The Hunger, a first person,
Right.
descent into, but choosing the third person, but to still have you locked into really, as we said, like the point of view of one character who is struggling mightily to make sense of the world, but not able to make sense of the world because of whatever's going on in his brain, right?
Yeah, I'm really interested to read more Pete Anka now because I've actually have no idea. Like, is the next book like just totally fucking different, or
Hmm.
is it kind of what I don't know what to expect. But I'm quite looking forward to now go on my little HANDKE discovery.
Hmm.
Is that something that interests you, or
Yeah, definitely. And also, well, Wim Wenders as well. As I said, the way that the whole film, especially when he gets to the countryside, um, but everything is so measured, everything's so thought, every camera setup,
Hmm.
every shot is like you're like, oh yes, that's okay, that's a beautiful choice to frame it that way, or to,
Yeah.
um, and then so
Robbie
much.
Mueller shot it as well. Also shot Paris,
Okay,
Texas, and a lot of yeah. His I the thing about watching this in HD as well is it looks fucking gorgeous. It's
no.
got this sun dappled
Well,
kind of
yes, I was going to say
greenness. Or yeah,
specifically, it's like they made the choice. Like, let's film 90% of the film at magic hour. Like, it just feels
right.
like you're constantly in this moment of this beautiful golden, everything limned
Yeah.
in, yeah,
And how
this.
fascinating to think in like the filmmaker who's famous for doing that is Michael Bay, right? And it's like you couldn't imagine a type of film more different from this, could you? Then
Yes.
can you imagine that the Michael Bay remakes? The
The
goalie's
goalies and
anxiety at the penalty kick.
yeah, fuck. With a pounding score of like shitty cock rock songs,
I almost want to see it now.
and Megan Fox draped over every little motorbike in town constantly. Um, no, yeah, no, yeah, it is, as I said, it's almost hard to speak about. I'm going to open up the book and actually see because I definitely did highlight some moments. But some of what I enjoyed the most was just um, the small moments, the descriptions of him cutting salami and eating bread, and there's
A lot of
something that,
flies. A lot of
oh yes,
flies.
which they do a good job actually of like they are definitely in the film. Like,
Yeah, there are. Yeah,
there's weird
there's a lot of
moments of the
flies
film where you
about.
get lost in watching a fly just walking around while the actors are still doing their bit. You're like, your attention is drawn to what the flies are doing.
But I feel there used to be. This is one of those old man things. But I swear there used to be more
More
flies.
flies.
Like I
Yes.
know I don't live in the country now. I used to live in the country, and now I live in a city or whatever. But it's still pretty. I'm sure flies were more of a like a thing you'd see, 2 or 3 times a day when it was flies, just flies.
Hmm.
And a whole week might go past now, and I don't see a fly. You know,
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, this is a topic for another show, but I do think the insect populations around the world
our
are in trouble.
upcoming hotly awaited fly podcast.
Yes. Um, Oh, it's funny. I'm just going to go through and read a couple of things that popped out at me.
Go on.
Downtown, he spent some time trying to find a phone booth. When he found an empty one, the ripped off receiver lay on the floor. That I just marked because that was my experience of childhood in Ireland. There was never a phone booth that wasn't vandalized,
And
um,
covered in bloody flies.
and covered in flies. Yes.
The most gross fly memory I have is a friend had a caravan back of their house in a field. They'd left their family caravan there like for a few summers or something, like
Mhm.
no one had touched it. So I remember going there with him just to fuck about in this caravan. And first of all, the key wouldn't fit in the door lock because
Mhm.
every every orifice of this caravan was filled with dead flies. You had
Jesus.
to like
Mhm.
scoop, just like gobs of dead
Mhm.
flies, and then you'd open the caravan. Everything was just covered in clumps of. I've never seen so many dead flies in my life, like en masse. It's deeply disgusting.
Well, yeah, because you think at some point the place was just rife with maggots, right? It would have been a Lucio
Yeah,
Fulci
yeah,
scene
that would
at
be
one.
worse. I think, but there's something about just piles of dead
Oh,
flies. Is like,
yeah.
oh, yeah,
I have so yeah, and it's funny there's a place here on Prince Edward Island that's kind of like a pioneer village. Like they've moved all of these old buildings, like old churches there, and there's like a little graveyard there, and you can go out, you can bring the school kids out there, and they can do horse buggy riding and candle making, and churning your own butter and all this kind of stuff, right? Um, but I went there in the off season once for some reason in I guess it must have been like the end of spring before they'd opened up, and so I went up to the front door and the inside of the office was just what you described. It was like the window, you couldn't see through the window. They were moving with
right.
flies. Obviously, there'd been some
Is
whether there
this
was
then
food left
when
behind.
I remember you were telling me, did the flies part and then you witnessed a murder and then Harrison Ford had to protect you for the rest of
Yes,
it? Was that what happened?
that was what went down. Yes,
Right, right.
it was
I thought it
called
sounded familiar, this community of
right. Um, so yeah. Hang on. Shit, what was I? Oh yeah.
it is a tricky one to talk about, isn't it? You
No,
well,
no.
you were in the middle of quoting some
But,
stuff and I
but yeah, no, but actually, but my other major fly memory is walking down the Murrah. So the Murrah was a stretch of stony beach that ran along Wicklow town, kind of. And anyway, there was a bunch of like big old kind of chemical plants out there just off to the side, and so you get these big pools of like stagnant water that were weird colors and stuff.
Hmm.
But I remember walking along, and there was a dead sheep just like lying near one of these pools of toxic waste. And I walked over, and for a moment I kind of panicked because I thought its eye moved, like I thought its eye swiveled,
Right.
but it's because they were just alive with
Uh,
maggots. And I remember being like, "Fuck!"
I'm
Like
glad
proper
that went
nightmare
there
fuel as
though.
a kid.
I was a bit worried there for a minute that it was gonna because you were mentioning the and you were gonna flies the size of small horses.
Oh Jesus!
They chase you home, they would.
Um,
Don't use up all your fly anecdotes now, Nick, because we'll be fucked for the first episode of the Fly podcast.
that's
So
true.
yeah,
Yes, yeah. I'll. That's
no more for now.
um. So one of the things that I find really interesting about this is so much of this book, and the film does actually a really good job of this as well, I think, is about the difficulty in communicating with other people, right? And like, so
Mm.
there's a lot of these very awkward conversations
People
where
just talking across each other.
across each other,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah. And then like, or no, 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 that's not what I meant. And then the other person's like, no, no, that's not what I meant. And like, oh no, I meant, yeah, I meant. There's a very strange, um, but there's a truth there. There's an underlying truth to that, I think.
Yes.
The
Yes,
way that
that's
we
the thing. It's
communicate
not. Yeah, it's not just nonsense. It's
no. And so he gets really frustrated, and I found this interesting from the beginning. And in some ways, it's why he kind of ends up murdering this woman, if he does in fact murder her, right? It's
mm,
it's it's this inability to communicate, and you know, so every word she uttered prevented him from taking any deeper interest, and it upset him that she seemed so free to take over whatever he said. And then later on, he has another interaction with two women where he says Block noticed that each time he mentioned something and talked about it, the two of them countered with a story about their own experience with the same or a similar thing, or with a story that they had heard about it. For example, if Block talked about the ribs he had broken while playing, they told him that a few days ago one of the workers at the sawmill had fallen off a lumber pile and broken his ribs.
mm,
Which is kind of how a conversation goes in some ways, right? You do
right.
rip off of what the other person says, but he's clearly disturbed. Like he wants to present these things as like finished pieces. and
Yeah,
they're
yeah, no. He's frustrated by an almost like surface like oh, I know something about that thing, so I'm gonna say it now, rather
Mhm.
than actually listening to what the person is
Yeah,
telling.
yeah, digesting it, and
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
No, no,
and then
it's very
one of my favorite lines in the whole
impressive
book
described.
is just this. The darkness in the fir forests, the gatekeeper recited from memory, had caused him to take leave of his senses. Something about that, and that's a line that's used in the film as well as. I was glad when it came up in the film as well that they kept that piece.
Right,
There's something about the idea of like just yeah, be careful, don't go into those dark evergreen forests.
right.
You'll be unhinged by them. Um,
Should mention as well in the film, Arthur Browse, the lead, is
so
so good. I
he's
can't
great.
believe I don't like. I know I looked him up and oh, like okay, I kind of know the name, and yes, I have seen him. He's in Cross of Iron, isn't he? So he's in
Oh, I haven't.
Beckenbach. Yeah,
Yes, yes. Holy shit. I was wondering, I did have a vague sense of where I knew him from.
yeah.
He's also, um, I do this far too often when we talk about this, but like I saw so many, he was like the sea, so many shades of other actors that I was like,
Yes,
ooh, I was
yes.
like, that's a little bit, well, first of all, he looks a little bit like Gordon, like a better put together Gordon Mitchell. Um, but
Gordon Mitchell. There's some Ed Harris in there.
yes, and then think about how all these actors are related to my mind. Peter Weller, there's a little bit of Peter Weller in there.
The other big one for me was especially when he was in the TV series Our Friends in the North, uh, um, Daniel Craig.
Yes, Daniel Craig was definitely in there for me. Another one, Mads Mikkelsen was in there just a little
Yeah,
bit for me as
yeah,
well. Just the
yeah,
scene where he's in the shower and the water's running down his head. I was like, that's a very Mads Mikkelsen moment. But
yeah.
yeah, there's all kinds of little
It's a cheekbone thing or something. I don't know. Or
yeah,
it's I don't know. There's something. Yeah,
young
but
the
he's
Irish fella from Taken.
Killian
A
Murphy.
tiny bit of Liam Neeson in there
Well,
maybe.
and
Like
Killian Murphy as well. Actually, now you
yeah,
mentioned it. He's
uh,
all things to all men. Obviously,
I think
so from
so.
now on, I'm taking more. I'm going to pay more attention to Arthur Rouse because I want to
Mm,
know what else he's the lead in.
yes.
Because he is a fantastic screen presence. Like, not many people, I don't think, could pull off this. You really feel that he is thinking all the things that aren't
Yes.
spoken out loud in the film but are in the book. Like
Yes.
you
Yes.
he's actually, yeah, it's an extraordinarily good performance, I think.
Because in some ways, you're right. It's a totally interior performance,
Yeah,
which shouldn't make sense in a film, and
no,
somehow he does pull it off.
the exterior doesn't fluctuate that much. Like
No.
there's a stoicness to it, but there's just this broiling
He
stuff
seems a
underneath.
little more, and again, it's hard to tell because when you're reading the book, you're more locked into the way he's trying to make sense of the world and struggling to make sense of the world. But he seems on the surface to be a bit more kind of happy-go-lucky and glib in the film than that was one thing I was like, oh, he seems quite like almost jaunty in some ways.
Mm,
Um, whereas he really, you feel the struggle, like you feel the disintegration of his mind in the book, I felt more, but it's still there, you know.
yeah,
So what do we make of the opening segment, which is not so they've taken away the segment of him showing up to work and then deciding himself that he's been fired and leaving
right.
and having these adventures. Instead, the film opens with a shot of him as a goalkeeper.
Yeah. Well, this makes a lot of sense to me because I mean it strikes me as a very startling metaphor, almost like so obvious that you wouldn't use it, but then I don't think I've ever actually seen anyone, like that whole loneliness of the long distance runner thing, right? Like
Mm,
it's, a goalkeeper is how much of that is you're just waiting, right? And
hmm.
then suddenly for few seconds, even less than a few
Yeah,
seconds,
fraction of a
something
second.
really fucking important and you've got to
Hmm.
be involved.
Right.
But until then, you can't really. How do you prep for like you don't know where it's coming from? You don't know.
Yes, yes. And so like that's the question I suppose you're left with, or one of the questions I was left with is his has his madness come from these high tension moments of having to make a split second decision about what way you think someone else is going to act. Like, can you? Because basically, what he talks about, and there's a deliberate, I think, marriage or a deliberate like pairing of what the police officer is saying about how when somebody's going to flee,
Mm,
you have to almost be able to intuit in that split
right,
second
right.
based on their eyeballs, based on the turn of their knee. And then he almost tells the same story to to another spectator at the end of the book and the film when he's sitting at
Yeah,
a football match. He kind of goes to the same thing of like as a foot you have to think, is he
yeah.
gonna to that corner or
So I
this
think
corner?
I understand why they did it because I think we needed to see because if he's just talking about he used to be a goalkeeper or whatever, that's a kind of different proposition. But by having him as the goalkeeper, we're forced to so we actually have see a game, right? And we see him waiting for
Mhm.
so it makes more sense. You're like the allegory works, I think, like how much of your life is just hanging around waiting for something to happen.
Yes,
So
yeah.
I think that was very smart from a visual perspective. Like it carries a lot of information, I think,
Hmm.
to what did you make of
Yeah,
it?
yeah, no, I think it's a great metaphor, or if
So
that's what
you
it is.
liked the film?
Yeah, yeah, no, I liked both. Yeah, greatly. They were both very satisfying and similar enough that you can see that they're the same thing, but also different enough that I didn't feel like I was just like, what's the point of watching the film? I've just read the book. I felt like it was they had properly reimagined it for the screen.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah.
that the author was involved. My understanding is that because he goes
Yes,
on to
yes.
then work. So
Peter Hanke did do the screenplay with Wim Wenders, yeah.
yeah, the decision to actually make it maybe slightly more explicit around whether
Mm,
or not his position as a goalie is the thing is maybe
right.
I mean, it's not
They
that simple,
they
but you
worked
know,
together many times after as well. The first one being, I think, a wrong move, which is based on like a good um, book, which is not
okay.
one of my favorite Wim Wenders films of that era. But no, I think I love the book. I think the book's great, but the film is just I think it's yeah, it's something really quite I yeah. I mean, it's probably
Also
not something a filmmaker wants to hear, but I suspect that Wim Wenders might
have peaked early.
yeah, like I think this is an extraordinary, and he's done other good films. Don't get me
Yes.
wrong. I even quite enjoyed the recent Koji Yakusha Cleans Toilets films.
Okay.
But but this is just I don't know. There's something. There's like it's lightning in a bottle. I feel this film,
Yes.
and also it's about. Well, the thing is as well. It's about lightning in a bottle. It's like
mm,
sometimes films accidentally capture that. Like
hmm
there's just an alchemy, there's the right mixture of people or whatever. They don't have much of a budget. They go out and they capture something and it's like, oh, that's but
hmm
the goal of this story is so you have to deliberately capture
Right.
lightning in a bottle.
hmm
That's hard. To
Yes. Yes.
deliberately do it
hmm
is that's a wing and a prayer shit right
hmm
there. So the fact that they pulled it out and yeah, I might watch it again actually soon. I mean, I like being in that world. It's
There
fascinating.
is something, yeah, there's something so strange and the it's one thing that the film does, I suppose, that the book quite can't do is give that bucolic
Mm,
sense of just a landscape. You're so immersed in that landscape. I there were scenes where I was like, oh, I wish they could have held that shot for longer. I would have liked to have explored that field more with my eyes, or I would have liked to have seen
yeah.
that stream an extra minute.
Yes,
Um,
I could have also watched the Bellata edit of Goalie's Anxiety, the 10
yeah,
hour version. I'm up
totally.
for that. Brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wonder who's the guy who's famous for doing those. I don't think I've actually ever seen any of his films, but like,
Well, you will be next Valentine's because it's Bellata, isn't it?
well,
It's
yeah, no, no,
Tango,
no.
yeah. There's
I'm
another one.
thinking of no Terrence Malick. Um,
Ah, okay.
and that's not true. I probably have seen early Terrence. Like, did he do Badlands? Or he
Yes.
did Badlands. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So never mind.
Yeah.
But like the more recent, these sort of epically long,
Yeah, I
dappled or
haven't seen so many
soaked
of
in
those.
sunlight.
Yeah. Yeah. I had enough of
But
all the whispering in Tree of Life. There's a lot
right.
of whispering. Um,
Um,
but on
there's
the
a
other hand, if I had to listen to that another thousand times in the 10-hour edit,
quite
fine.
happily.
I'm
Yeah.
up for it. Yeah.
There's a last quote or two from the book that struck me, and the film does a good job with this as well. I think in a weird way because the book itself makes veiled references and open references to cinema. at different
Mm,
times. Right? He sometimes kind of understands things through cinema, right?
right.
And so there's he's like, the mailman had turned his back to Block, even while Block was still talking, and was now speaking quietly with the postmistress, in a murmur that sounded to Block like those passages in a foreign film that are left untranslated because they're supposed to be incomprehensible anyway. Which is, I mean, something that I always notice when I'm watching a film that's subtitled, and I'm like, oh, they're not
Right.
subtitling that. But
Right.
then watching this film, I was made hyper aware of those moments in the film where they hadn't translated because of the book. I was like, oh, that's cool. There's like a weird connection now between that. And then later on, he talks about how he opens up the newspaper and he feels like the headlines be just like pasted in. It's a sense of like, oh, this is like a prop from a film where you can see
Right.
that like or he talks about, which I'd forgotten about, when you would go to penny arcades and you could have fake newspapers made up with like your
Oh
name,
yeah.
like Nick wins World Cup, or
One
that.
one of my most beloved possessions, I think it's still back at home because I kind of don't want to take it away from my family home in a way because it just feels like I don't know, an
Mhm.
admission that that home won't always be there or something.
Right.
Sorry, I'm getting a bit fucking heavy. But one of my most prized was for one Christmas, one of my Christmas presents from I think one of my sisters or something was you could also like that you could send away to like a publisher and
Yes.
they'd write.
Yes.
Did you have one of these?
Yes. I did have one of these.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had one made
It-
for me, and yeah, and and it's all members of your family are
Family.
characters in
Yeah.
the story,
Yeah.
and even the cat
Hmm.
and stuff like that. And that was so much fun to read when I was like, oh no, you already did. It was just every
Yep.
time I go back, I have a look at it, and it never stops being a source of great joy. It's a
Yes.
very
No.
simple
I
idea, but
totally had one of them, and yes, that was a fad for them. I think when we were kids, and they were amazing.
yeah,
Uh,
what a great idea.
hmm
Because when you're a kid, you see like not just your name, but your and because it's their nicknames or stuff as well, right? It's like
Right.
it's like how do they know this? Like,
Yes.
I
That's
think.
my
Do you remember the story? I think my story was, I think I was a private detective or trying to investigate something. Maybe.
okay.
Do you
I
remember
know
what was?
I have no memories. I just remember the book, and I remember how I could kind of tell, like, because it was slightly off center where the names were like printed. They
Yeah,
weren't
yeah,
quite
yeah,
on the
yeah,
line of
yeah.
like the way that it had been like pajunk, like stamped in, almost stamped into the book. Just slightly different font almost or something.
But no,
Um,
absolutely charming. Does yours still exist? Does someone still have it with
No,
you?
sadly, I think
Oh, that's a shame.
so much of the, so many things. We had like a certain number of tea chests we were able to ship to Canada with us, and my 2000 AD comics collection took precedent over many other things. That was the one thing I was allowed to, you know.
Do you still have them?
Yes, I do.
Really?
Actually, Tavis has them, funnily enough, a lot of
Ah,
them. I gave
okay.
them to him at one point
You sold them all by now.
when I was moving. Well, the thing was, I said to him, like, yeah, you could have these for the shop. And he was like, Tavis being Tavis, he was like, nope, nope, they will be kept in a room for you
Yeah.
at when the time comes when you need them again. And
So what
which
have
was
you got? Like progs through what to where? Like what era? How
good
many?
question. I would have a run that would go from maybe the 87 through probably a couple of years worth. But again, if you think of it every week, it's a couple of hundred progs.
Well, I'm
And
just saying, if you're 87, so that's almost. So would you have started around prog 500, something like that?
yeah, so definitely. So actually, 500 is one of the ones that I would have in that run. So it's probably closer to 400. Yeah, through
Okay.
maybe 500 and something. Um,
A good period.
yes. Oh yeah, yeah. Pretty classic. And then I have all the annuals. And I kept all of my 2080 summer specials and all of the best of 2080 monthlies. That stuff I kept. All the Titan graphic novels. But it was the actual
Nice.
paper issues, the individual issues where I couldn't take all of them. I kind of
Right.
some of them got left behind.
Were you still going like reading new when it was did you go as far as magazine era or did you tap out before
That
that?
was just around the time that we were leaving.
Ah,
Yeah, I think so. I definitely missed that. Although I saw some reprints, because right around the time we moved, this is completely nothing to do with what we're talking about. So maybe we'll put a pin in this
That's
because
the way
actually
we like it.
Judge Dredd is somebody that I would like to do in a couple of
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, it's one of those things. It's one of those if you're our, you know, if you're as handsome
mhm.
and cool as we are,
Hmm.
um, it's and you do a comics podcast. It's just one of those things. It's so like fuck. Where do we start with that? Like, and it's almost too obvious to do it, but at the same time, I don't want to ignore. I do want to get
Nope.
into some dread, but
Yes. I have some
yeah,
ideas
you
about
might
how to
be the
approach it.
fella to do that,
Yes.
to map it out, I think.
Um, but yeah, I mean, and then I just the last thing I'll say is I think it does such a good job of I almost felt unhinged at points of reading this book and disturbed by how well it actually tracks if you have had any kind of moments of like struggle or where you become kind of like where you are looking for patterns where you shouldn't be or where, he has this moment where he wakes up in the morning and is immediately nauseated by the overstimulation. I was like, oh shit. That's
Right.
that I felt like the camera is turned squarely back on me. There was moments of like watching somebody struggle and being like, yeah, I do relate to some of these struggles.
Mm.
Um,
Being a
so it was,
mentalist.
yes, yes, exactly. That's yeah.
Sorry,
Um,
no, no, mentalist would be a very different thing. Although I believe I have heard that said in that
Probably.
as a synonym. Ah, you fucking mentalist. I don't think they meant, oh, you're damn clairvoyant or whatever the fuck you. Yeah.
This will be my last quote from the book because for some reason I was obsessed with this, and I'm very happy that this made it into the book as well, or into the film as well. They were only a few steps away when the light in the tavern was turned off and it became completely dark. It was so dark that Block put his hand over his eyes, which is great. What the? Behind the wall, they were just passing. He heard the snorting of cows. Something ran past him. I almost stepped on a hedgehog just then, the guard exclaimed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. And then he
And
goes
then
on to
to explain,
proudly talk about, oh, it's my job
yeah,
to
he has
to
an
be
ESP
observant.
almost.
That
Yeah,
that felt very Flann O'Brien.
totally. As
Yeah,
I said, that whole
yeah,
segment we could come right out of the third police one. But anyway, yeah, I would say quite an incredible early novel. Like this is an early novel for the writer, right? And then
yeah,
an incredible early film for the director.
yeah, yeah. I'm glad I circled back round to this one. It was time was due.
Yes, and as I said, it wasn't on my radar at all. So thanks for bringing it to my attention too. So.
Oh, you're very, very welcome, Nick, as always. Right, off we go then.
Mhm.